Forbes Books presents The Great Digital Transformation with Gerard Zatvani, highlighting the pioneers that reimagined possibilities and reimagined businesses. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and this week Gerry and I are joined by Tony Saldanha, the co-founder at Inixia and author of the book Why Digital Transformations Fail. Tony's impressive CV includes leading operations and digital transformation for Procter Gamble's global IT business services in every region of the world. He's also an advisor to boards and CEOs on digital transformation and a sought-after speaker known for championing new, relevant business and technology models to stay ahead of disruptive technology capabilities. Tony, welcome to the podcast.
Delighted to be here, Joe.
And so, Tony, Gerry thought your book was fascinating. And before we get into it, I always ask this question. And I'm not going to ask it this time. Gerry's already smiling about it. I always ask how to define digital transformation. I'm not going to ask you that, Tony.
That's good.
What I'm going to ask you is, what are the benefits of digital transformation? Let's start with that.
In today's world, where you can't really do any conversation without somebody mentioning the C word, which is ChatGPT, you know what this is all about. Every profession is potentially being transformed by digital technology. So digital transformation is just the methodology, the approach by which companies, individuals, nonprofits, governments can move along with the times. They can transform and improve the way they provide goods and services.
Excellent. And you already jumped into ChatGPT. Gerry and I were going to wait, but you know what? You started. You opened up the bottle. So let's get into the effects of AI and digital transformation, because Gerry and I have been doing this podcast for a little over a year. And then obviously November, December, ChatGPT was unleashed to the world. So we didn't really have a lot of conversations about this. So talk to me about AI's role in digital transformation.
AI, obviously, is one of the most exciting tools in digital transformation. In the book, I talk about, from a corporate standpoint, having worked at a Fortune 20 company, the impact of digital technologies. And among all of those technologies, artificial intelligence is by far the most impactful. So the role of AI in digital transformation is like, many of the other technology tools, artificial intelligence is a tool. But it's an incredibly powerful tool because it has the ability to automate decision making. Every other tool in history has been, something that you use along with you to help you execute a piece of work, and then the humans made the decision. AI, for the first time, is entering the space of decision making.
I think this is the intersection between AI as well as what's happening with the gig economy, everything like Uberization of work. Plus, you have a lot of things going in the background with the digital transformation in general. I think these are some trends that are going to impact, especially the workforce. The workforce in itself is going to be transformed. Our profession is going to be changed significantly. We're not going to work in the same way as we worked in the past. And I think companies need to get ready for a big transformation happening, a big disruption. It's more than a transformation. It's going to be a big disruption in the next 5 to 10 years, I believe. And I would argue that today, if you're putting in an ERP, that's not digital transformation. That's just digitization and getting you up to speed with what's happening in the world. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are about this.
Gerry, you and I are 100% aligned. And this is really what drove me to write the book on why digital transformations fail. Because, Joe asked a really important question: how do you define digital transformation? And what I found was that with any other term in history, once it becomes exciting, it gets co-opted by people who want to sell you something, right? And so digital transformation was being co-opted by everybody that wanted to sell a piece of software. You mentioned ERP, but it could be anything, right? It could be cloud, whatever it is. It's like, hey, there's an exciting new capability on the horizon. And of course, we deliver it, even if they happen to deliver milk to your front door, right? It's like, yeah, we do that. So I had to kind of step back and do two things, which is one, provide a framework, for large companies or small, but even other organizations on what digital transformation was. And the second is what you said, which is what exactly is digital transformation and what is not. So, Joe and Gerry, if you humor me just for a second, I'm going to go a little long on this, but let me go back to your original question on what is digital transformation. I tried to put that term into historical context of industrial revolutions, right? So this is the fourth industrial revolution. The first one was steam engines. The second one was electricity. The third one was the internet, and this is the fourth one, right? Um, and digital transformation, when viewed from that context, is the capability, is the methodology that you use for companies that thrive in the third industrial revolution era to continue to thrive and win in the fourth, right? Therefore, digital transformation is not a tool, it's not a technology, it's not AI. I mean, you use all of those to drive a change. But that's really what I loved about what you just said, Gerry, which is, digital transformation is not just simple automation. I mean, it's everything that you need to do to be successful in the new era. So once you agree with that, then the second becomes the framework for digital transformation. And the framework that I propose is a five-stage framework. You start with foundation, and foundation is where you automate. And Gerry, you're absolutely right. It's not about ERP or SAP or whatever it is. That is literally just pure taking the stuff that's physical and making it digital. Most vendors will sell you that as digital transformation. It is not. Stage two is siloed, which is when a function or parts of an organization starts to play with disruption, real transformation, but it's not, across the entire organization. Stage three is partial transformation. This is really when, most organizations will declare digital transformation to be a strategy. GE was very early to that party under Jeff Immelt, 10, 15 years ago, when they said, we want to be a digital company. That was maybe a little too far ahead of the times, but that's really stage three. Stage four is full synchronization or full transformation of all of the work processes and products. That's when you achieve one time digital transformation. But as you can see, there is a stage five, and the difference between stage four and stage five is changing the DNA of the company. So you start to disrupt yourself again and again and again, right? So longish answer, Gerry, but just to kind of completely agree with your point that we have to be careful not to be misled on what digital transformation is.
Tony, you should write a book about this.
Oh, you think?
I think there is also, I think where I've struggled a lot, especially working with some of the people and customers and everything, is to really take them out of the technology space. Of like everybody is thinking in terms of digital transformation is thinking that no, this is some kind of a technology that I'm gonna bring in and I'm gonna implement and integrate and whatever, and it's gonna transform my business. And I strongly believe that first and foremost, this transformation comes from the way people think, from the way people approach things, from processes, from it's a mindset, it's a framework, it's a process of actually transforming the business and using digital as a tool to transform the business. First and foremost, and then it's all about software and other things like the tools really that will do the transformation. But if you are not really paying attention to the transformation, to really the your ability to dream about, okay, what would be my ideal situation, how can I innovate, how can I rethink my business, like look at Elon Musk with the electric car. Like the electric car is not really a new concept. It's not, but he just put the pieces together in a very different and novel way, just because he was saying, why not? Let me do it in a different way. And that kind of like dreaming about things in different ways and not really minding about all the nuts and bolts and oh, I'm gonna do digital transformation. Well, I'm gonna implement an ERP and I'm gonna integrate it with this, and that's gonna be my digital transformation. And that's not it. That's not it. And it starts with the way you're thinking and dreaming about it. And that's why I think we agree on especially on the process part of how you are going about it and understanding what is what, and being able to kind of reimagine your business and transform your business.
And Tony, you kind of broke it down for us, the book, but why digital transformations fail. And I don't want to give away all the secrets, even though you did a nice job of breaking it down there. But anecdotally, is there one reason you could throw out there that why these digital transformations fail that maybe either you highlight in the book or something pretty recent you'd like to talk about?
I sure can. It's basically a simple word, discipline. And I do mention that in my book, but it's also very real in today's world. See, the fact of the matter is, it's a little bit like what Gerry said. Human beings are wired to look for the quick, easy solutions, right? The simple solutions. But in reality, if you are going to transform yourself, your mindset, your organization, your work processes, your products, and do that systemically, there is a methodology available. It's been out there. I just, assembled it and provided a somewhat simple framework. But it is the discipline of going after each one of these, right? Firstly, you start with trying to figure out, what does the end state look like? What does the goal look like? I mean, going back to the second industrial revolution, I mean, if you were a horse carriage company, your goal is transportation, it is not horses. So you kind of start with, what is my purpose? What am I trying to do? Right? What industry do I belong in? You start with that, and then, using the electric car example, you kind of go back to first principles and say, all right, if this is transportation, then why is it so difficult for me to automate that, right? And you hit upon either an electric car or an internal combustion engine. By the way, internal combustion engines were the second choice for most companies when cars were created. Everybody actually first started with electric, and then for good reasons couldn't do it, and then kind of stopped, right? So you start with first principles, and then you go through the discipline of saying, all right, how do I change my horse carriage company? It's very difficult, complete new tools, complete new innovation, transformation, right? That's really where the word comes in. Then you go after your people, your mindsets, your customers, and so on and so forth. That's why digital transformations fail, because people are looking for the simple and the quick answer, where in reality, the answer is discipline in execution of digital transformation.
Gerry, I think you and Tony were separated at birth, right?
Oh, we're twins for sure.
Yeah, I think overall discipline, it's very important, like having a way of going about it, and day by day looking into the results, evaluating where you are, stepping back. Hey, are we still heading in the right direction? But it's interesting how you are talking about the goals. Like, what are we? Are we a transportation company, or are we a horses company, or are we a carriage company? Like, really understanding what are we and what are we trying to solve. I think it's first and foremost, because sometimes companies forget what is their purpose, and the how begins the goal, instead of really understanding what the goals are. And you get to go about it in the wrong way. I mean, I'm not sure if you were watching the news. Like, there is this company, Bath and Beyond,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
they just went bankrupt. And it's a very interesting case study. Well, because they did do some significant implementation of technology and omni-channel and all of that, but but I think that they forgot to transform the business in the way of doing this, in the sense that they were still couponing, they were still not really looking into what the demand is and what are they selling, like the same way of stocking up in the inventory. Yeah, you did it digitally, but you were doing it and approaching it in the exact same way. So what's the difference, really? Where was the transformation? What was the goal when you implemented all of these tools? You implemented all this technology. You paid all this money to make things happen. But then, what was the goal of it? Where did you go with it? What were you trying to accomplish, like in terms of bringing more value to the customer, in terms of increasing your profit margins, in terms of being more efficient, in terms of having a better relationship with the market? So I don't think that they really thought this through when they started all of their technology implementations and everything that they've done. So it didn't go well, obviously.
Very nicely put. And in fact, the retail industry is a really good example of, what I call innovation theater, right? The retail industry, whether it's the Nordstroms or, not to kind of pick on them, but, Bed Bath and Beyond and several other companies, they have been investing very heavily in digital technologies for a very, very long time. The challenge is the approach, which is, how do they do that? They might have some very cool case studies or even pilot tests of like robots, of back-end technologies, of, information that is turned into small use cases, even of artificial intelligence, right? And they're all very, very exciting, except that they are not scalable. They don't change the business model of, BBY, Bed Bath and Beyond, or any other company. They stay at that anecdotal theater level. They never transform the company. And so, Gerry, I think when you kind of start to look at most of the failures of companies, including, by the way, the most recent, as of, a couple of days ago, First Republic, you start to see where there is tons of automation which is happening, but people are forgetting the principles of their own business, whether it is risk management in the case of financial institutions, the basic principles of, how much risk you should be assuming just because, several years ago there was low interest capital available. How should you protect against that? And how should you transform the business model? And I think that's really what is happening. This is one of the many reasons why digital transformations fail.
It's funny, Tony, because if you read any of the stories or the obituaries of these companies, whether it's Bed Bath & Beyond, Toys R Us, Borders Books, the one quote that you see every time is the CEO coming out and saying, "We were too late to e-com." That's pretty much a running thread for all of these companies. But to you, Tony, it seems like just the way kind of you described it, it's more like they use that as a cop out. Like they're saying, "Oh, our previous leaders were just too late and we just could never stem the tide." Is that a cop out, or do you think there is some sort of truth to the fact that many of these companies that have gone bankrupt is because they were too late to the game?
So in the retail area, certainly that was true. That is true, which is they didn't transform their channels into e-com, as the case may be, or transform their supply chains. I mean, as the pandemic a few years ago showed us, if your supply chain is not resilient enough, it gets stopped at the border because shipping stops. So, something happens, then you have a major issue, right? So you need to continue to transform your work processes. So back to your question, Joe, why is it that CEOs keep saying, we were late to the game? The reason is because the reward systems of most organizations, the reward systems of Wall Street and things like that, do favor short-term stability, right? So, your growth versus year ago in profits or sales, or so on and so forth. So if I'm an executive, I'm not going to rock the boat. I'm not going to transform my bread and butter in a big way, right? So I'm going to do a little bit of pilot in Silicon Valley because, hey, that's risk free. But then when it comes to bringing that change into the rest of the company, that's where you kind of run into change resistance. So I do think that there is some truth to the CEOs lamenting that, yes, we were late to the game. I think where I fault them is for not being on top of the latest approaches to fix that. There is the famous 70-20-10 model, which started with Google/Alphabet about 20 years ago, where 70% of their capability is on day-to-day operations, 20% on continuous improvement, and 10% on disruption. Right? A study by Harvard Review and many others. This was like 15 years ago, has proved that people that have three-part strategies, right? Day-to-day, continuous improvement, and disruption, they overperform on earnings per share versus peers that don't. So the response to these CEOs is, you're being simplistic. What prevented you from taking a small fraction of your earnings and investing in disruptive technology and in driving that change into the rest of the organization? You did not have to mortgage the entire company on disruption, but you certainly had to have a small fraction of your strategy dedicated to transforming your company. I think that's where they went wrong.
But I think investing in technology in some cases is not necessarily the issue, because they did spend the money on technology, but why they spent the money on technology, that was the issue. They didn't do a kind of like a rethink of the model, rethink of, okay, why am I here? What am I selling and how am I selling? How do I, because essentially in many businesses like Bed Bath and Beyond is one of a good example. You really need to match the demand, what your customers want, with the supply, with what you have in your inventory. If you don't have a good match between these two, what do you need to do? You need to discount and discount and discount, and then goodbye margins. No more margins, no more future, it's gone. Like, if you don't have a good way of matching these two, and understanding how you can actually provide value to your customers, and then how you take that and you bring them back into your supply chain in order to really bring the proper inventory in order to match the needs of your customers, then it doesn't matter how super omni-channel you are, or super AI products you've implemented, or whatever. You're gonna still end up to discount and discount because your customers are not finding what they are looking for. It's as simple as that, in many situations. And in terms of the timing, in a sense, yes, I somewhat agree that if you're too late to the game, you're gonna be penalized. Right? It's but Facebook was not the first social media company. Google was not the first search engine. Like, it's timing has a value in its own, but it's, you can still fix things even if you're late at the game in some ways. I would definitely look much deeper into what these people are saying, and I think just taking that at face value is I think it's the wrong approach.
Interesting. And Tony, I know you write about that digital technology has become the backbone of companies, but now what you're seeing is business people, technologists saying, whatever company you are, you're a tech company. Like, regardless of whether you sell shoes, you sell apps, you sell socks, you're a tech company. So talk to me about that conversion from being the backbone of a company to essentially being like the main part of the company.
Yes, that is absolutely true. And that's the reason why, in a lot of these conversations, I kind of put the transformation in the context of an industrial revolution. Because I think the disruptive technology in the first industrial revolution was steam, the second one was electricity, the third one was the internet. The fourth one, which is the current one, is different from all of those because there is one technology, quote unquote, digital, which is eating and transforming physical, biological, electrical, all other types of technologies, right? That's what's different about this era in terms of industrial revolution. So what that means is that, hey, if you are in the legal industry, digital technology is disrupting the legal industry. I mean, you just have to look at cases like in China, where small claims court is now being run in some places by AI. And then you say, oh my God, wait, what the heck is happening here? Or Latvia, or, any of these other places. So it doesn't matter, what technology you are in, the tool of digital is going to, you know, disrupt you, not necessarily in the way of making all of us jobless, but, lawyers that use that tool will disrupt lawyers that don't use that tool. So the fact of the matter is that, yes, of course, it is different because it kind of cuts across all industries.
I would argue that this is like the nuance. They are not tech companies; they are tech-enabled companies.
Yes, yes, yes.
And like
That's a
it's
good point.
because you still need to be a very good lawyer. It's just that you need to understand digital. You need to understand how you use digital in order to do your job. You will still sell shoes, but you need to sell shoes in a new way, digital enabled. You still have to be good at what you're doing. It's just that you're gonna do it in a very different way using digital technologies. And I think the approach is different. But if you don't know much about legal, you're not gonna be very successful. If you don't know much about electric and whatever, you're not gonna do a great job at it. So I think why am I saying this? Because I've seen people that are doing this in oh no, we are a tech company, and they forget about the fact that, hey, we are still selling shoes. We still have to make money on selling shoes. And then it gets lost in this entire, like we are a tech company.
That's a really, really important insight. The difference between, are we a tech company or are we a tech-enabled company, or, as I say, we are a data company, right? So the nuance is important because it is important to address people's fears that, we're all going to be jobless because robots are going to do that, work that I do, right? And that's probably never, and I hesitate saying never because, at some point in time when we hit that singularity, the robots are going to be smart enough. But that's not, for many decades away. But, so never say never. But, for the foreseeable future, which is all I can tell, it is going to be a tool. And like any other tool in history, fire, iron, electricity, so on and so forth, if you're not taking your core distinctive skills, as a lawyer, and trying to figure out how to do that better than others, then you are at a disadvantage. And therefore, I think, Joe, that nuance between, we are a tech company or a tech-enabled or a data company is very important.
I want to ask you and sort of tie two things together that we kind of touched upon, the pandemic and AI. Gerry and I have talked about this for a while now, Tony, about the fact that the pandemic acted as an accelerant
Yes.
for digital transformation. Do you see AI acting as that accelerant in this next phase where hopefully we don't need another pandemic to do that for us, Tony? But do you think the AI will act in that same way where it'll just speed things up to a pace that we did not see coming?
It is, and I would make it even more narrow than that. I think it is the incredible press that ChatGPT has received. That is the accelerant at this point in time. I mean, AI has been around for a while. People have known about AI. People have been afraid about AI. But it is the incredible adoption of, like 100 million people kind of coming online on ChatGPT, people going in, and asking questions, very narrow questions specific to their fields. I'm a professional in mental illness. What are the strategies to cope with A, B, and C in this case? And getting answers that are so incredibly um, precise. That's what's gotten people's attention. So the reality is that, just like with the internet or with anything else, once you are able to make things real for the population, they get excited. And when they get excited, you have an acceleration. So what's happened specifically with ChatGPT is that the nebulous construct of AI has become very real, right? Because now as a lawyer, I can go in and say, hey, what are the rules of ABC in China, and get a very precise answer. And I'm a lawyer and I'm saying, oh my God, this is real. That's what fires up my imagination. And so that's really what's happening out there. So.
And it's happening at a lightning speed. Like it's like the amount of adoption in a couple of months, it's just like it never happened in the tech industry. This is big. In a couple of months, hundreds of millions of users. And I think that the realization, people just really realized how much AI can accelerate what they are doing, because the lawyer will investigate the things about China and they will get some answers and everything. But a smart lawyer would not take that answer from ChatGPT at face value. A smart lawyer would take that as a starting point, so that they can go deeper and they can double check and they can contextualize and all that. But you have a leg up. You are much further ahead in your process. Like in the case of architects, they had AI tools to kind of run concepts and designs and everything before as well. But since ChatGPT, I've seen way more interest in actually doing it and actually looking into it and actually understanding that this is actually happening. And for architects, in their case, they can put together some concepts and do a lot of kind of ideation with their customers, and that will kind of shorten the cycle. And shortening the cycle is what is going to happen in many professions. Like I think many people think about this, oh, I'm gonna lose my job. Actually, you're gonna be able to do your job better. You're gonna focus a little bit better on what your customers want. You will have more time to kind of think creatively about it, and you will be able to be more efficient with what you're doing. So like in any revolution, like the robots did not kill the jobs. Like look at where we are. Like in the US, the jobless rate is ridiculously low, even after so many rumors of recession and this and that. And why? Because there is a huge demand, and even moving forward, I think that there will be so much value added in what people can add to our lives and to our economies, not necessarily by you know doing whatever research work over the entire internet, that ChatGPT can do better.
Hmm. That's good. It's funny because, there's this software for screenwriters called Final Draft, and I feel like ChatGPT is everyone's first draft. I think that's just a great way to look at ChatGPT. It's like, hey, give me like a baseline and then I'll do the rest. And like you said, Gerry, about making things easier. And I have sort of a follow-up question to this about AI and chatbots. And Tony, I'd love to get your take on this, and Gerry as well. I feel like the search experience has kind of gone to hell. You have now 12-byte ads when you search something. You have people gaming the SEO system. So it takes a lot longer to find what you're searching for. Will ChatGPT, like bots, Bing's already doing it, do you see that in a way replacing our classic search, sort of like that third industrial revolution of technology where people will no longer depend on a search bar and now talk to a chatbot? Is that what you're seeing in the near term?
I do think in the near term, search is definitely going to get revolutionized. And we know that because, both Microsoft and Google are scrambling, whether it is with Bard or ChatGPT or, whatever it is, to introduce, those capabilities into search. But I think you were very smart in couching that to say in the short term, because I think the reason why search engines have become, incredibly annoying with all the ads and stuff like that is the commercial model, which is, search was free for a long time until somebody had to pay the bill, and then that's where the advertisers came in, and then all of the gaming and stuff like that. I have no doubt that at some point in time, we're going to have to pay the piper for the Chat GPT. It's not just a research project. It is going to become a commercial project. And I have no idea whether the annoyance in the future is going to be through ads or, lack of privacy or, whatever it is. But I'm sure there is going to be some annoyance start to creep in once, the dollar signs become important.
I think search is going to be totally disrupted. Yes, yes, yes. It's we're gonna see the way we interact with search engines is going to be way different. But even the way they are going through the entire data, the way they are bringing relevant information to you is going to become way better. I mean, as of lately, I mean, we have evolved in the way we search, we as human beings. Like, we are no longer 10 years ago when we would type in 3 words and we would get 10 relevant results and we were saying, wow, this is great. Now you expect way better. You want to type in an entire sentence, uh, 10 words long and very fine and very particular, and you want to get relevant answers, and the current chat engines do not give you relevant results, and the experience is really not that great. And this entire AI based technology will disrupt the search industry for sure. And I don't mind seeing ads as long as my results are relevant.
Right.
I don't mind seeing, and the way you monetize, you can either pay for a subscription. We are paying now for many things, like for Spotify, and if you want YouTube Premium, you pay for it, and that's fine as long as the relevance of what you're getting for it is there. And it is going to change probably also the way we sell search and the way we do these things in a relevant way, because I'm telling you, AI is not for free. I mean, my company has been working on top of OpenAI, and we've done our own AI enabled code assistant since a couple of years now, and we are paying the piper, we are paying the licenses for OpenAI, and it doesn't come cheap. I can tell you that. So somehow, some way, that needs to be monetized.
Cool. Well, speaking of companies, Tony, before we let you go, give us a little plug for Inixia. What are you doing there today?
Inixia is basically the industry standard and certification body for an area which is called global business services or shared services. So the short answer for our listeners is that every company has business processes, finance, HR, so on and so forth. As you become bigger, you start to sweep those together and streamline and standardize and then use technology like ERP and sourcing techniques like setting up centers offshore or outsourcing to improve those processes, right? So that particular trend, which started about 30 years ago, is now a $110 billion industry globally. With Tata and Infosys and Accenture and like everybody playing in that particular area. But the funny thing is, because this is a recent industry, it hasn't been acknowledged like any other industry. I mean, if you are an accountant, there is a body that you go to and you say, hey, where do I get a CPA, certified public accountant, certification and degree? There's nothing similar in shared services or global business services. So my co-founder, a guy named Filippo Passerini, who actually coined the term global business services about 30 years ago, and we decided, hey, we lived this for about, 2.5, 3 decades. We might as well, as practitioners, start to share some of this information. So we work with, small companies, large companies, governments, anybody that has a shared services, and we help them figure out how to increase their maturity and leapfrog the area of, work process transformation.
Cool. Gerry, that sounds like a legit company, right?
Yes, definitely. I can relate to that for sure. We work with a lot of major global transformative companies that are really into these things, and they can definitely use your services for sure.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Tony, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us, talk about the book, Why Digital Transformations Fail. We went all over the place. It was quite a journey, Tony. Thanks for strapping on for the ride. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Joe, and very nice to meet you too, Gerry.
Thank you, Tony. Nice meeting you too. Thank you, Joe.
This has been The Great Digital Transformation with Gerard Zatvani. To participate in the conversation, go to gerardzatvani.com. The Great Digital Transformation is a production of Forbes Books.